There are a couple ways that you can improvise. The first way is finding out the scale of the chord progression you're playing over and just using that scale as a canvas to start improvising. You can tie to it some licks, you can tie to it some sequences and things like that. And that's what we typically do, right? Typically the scale we try to land on is a pentatonic scale. This one in A, for example. And once we have that, we will basically just throw in a backing track that's in A, like this one, for example, and just glue on top of that scale the licks that we know should work. And it works. That's one of the approaches where you tie all the chords to a scale and then you just kind of let your fingers do the playing, right? And that leads into things like very mechanical playing too, where like more sequence-based, right, that kind of thing. So typically players think, well, I'm gonna try to be a little more melodic. I'm used to the sound of that scale. Put the guitar down, I do this all the time, and start singing something. And then if you can play the way you sing, it's gonna be a little more lyrical, right? But same thing, if I remove the backing track, I mean, it's still not very interesting. So we're going to talk about, instead of doing it that way, thinking in terms of scales, thinking in terms of chords. I like to see music, especially instrumental music, as little stories without words. And you can make your own story, right, in your mind. But that's kind of how I see instrumental music. The story that is being heard can have different meanings, right? We attach our own meaning to instrumental music, but the meaning we attach to the music we're hearing is always directed by what we're hearing, obviously. And so when we're hearing something like this, the story is directed by the chords here. As a lead player, I'm just basically joining a story that is already told. I'm not making a brand new story. So if that's the story, I'm just gonna paint over it and add a few details. But if I can really tell the story without the story, that's gonna be even better. So the story here, I'm talking about the chords, right? So that's the first thing. We're gonna take more of a chordal approach. If I look at the chords, if we analyze the chords here, there's several things going on, but the first three chords are D minor. You can play that in a lot of different positions, right? It doesn't matter, pick one. I'm gonna pick this one right here, kind of the bar chord. And then we have an E minor, play this one, and then A minor. Okay, so we've got three chords here that go on. First step is to try to highlight the notes of these chords. And you're gonna do that just by visualizing the position of the chord. So I'm gonna use this one first, and then we'll elaborate a little bit more. So I've got a D minor 7 here, the bar version, you know, starting on the 5th string, frets 5, 7, 5, 6, 5. And then I'll use the same position 2 frets higher for the E minor 7. And then A minor 7, I'm gonna take this position. If you don't know those chord shapes, just go with the chord shapes you're familiar with. But A minor 7, you know, 5, 7, 5, 5, 5, 5. Or 5, 7, 5, 5, 8, 5, same thing. Those are the chords I'm gonna highlight. So, I've got my track, here's the D minor. As the chords happen, I'm visualizing these chords on my fretboard. I'm actually looking at my fretboard here, and we repeat that A minor 7. Okay, so if I play the chords with the backing track, of course it matches, right? But I'm not a rhythm player here, I'm painting over this. So I'm gonna switch to my lead tone, and I'm just gonna use the notes of the chords. And of course, it changes the chords here. That's okay, we'll do it again. Here's the D minor 7, E minor 7, here's the A minor 7. Now, if I take the backing track off, what happens? Well, you still hear that chord progression, right? You hear what's going on without needing to hear it. Pretty boring, right? It's kind of lame, but it matches. So we're going to try to blend in that concept to really highlight the chords, to let you hear the chords without needing the backing track, and blend that with the scale approach, which is the first thing we did, where we tie everything to a scale. We try to figure it out, in this case, A minor. So let's try that, and we're going to do that without the backing track. All right, so let's give that a try. We're going to look at the first chord here that we decided to use. 5, 7, 5, 6, 5. So we're going to blend this chord shape. I'll switch to a clean tone so you can really hear. We're going to blend this chord shape with our A minor pentatonic scale. And we'll notice that some notes of the minor pentatonic scale are found in my chord. Great. Some are not. They're going to add more details to the story. So instead of taking, we could take a very scholar approach. Let's play the arpeggio, the notes of the chords. And when I say arpeggio, just focus on the notes of the chords. Don't worry if you're skipping some notes of the arpeggio. It doesn't matter. Visualizing the chords, so basically, and then descend the minor pentatonic scale. You could do it that way. Not very musical. Instead, we're going to try to switch our mind to one of the two ways of visualizing the fretboard. So I'll start with minor pentatonic. I'll play a lick, or play minor pentatonic, and then I'm going to try to highlight the notes of the chords without a backing track again, just to get used to that feel. All right, so I'll start minor pentatonic. Try to pay attention to what's going on and what type of angle I'm approaching this. So minor pentatonic scale, all in that zone of the fretboard, by the way, in a narrow zone. I really think it's beneficial if you don't go outside for now. So minor pentatonic, and then I'm going to take the chordal approach. Okay, you heard the difference, right? Let's try another one. Minor pentatonic. And the chord. All right, now let's try to make it a little, not as clear, maybe a little more subtle. So I'm gonna base everything on minor pentatonic, but as I'm playing my minor pentatonic, I am visualizing this. Okay, that's going to really help me. Minor pentatonic. You heard it there, right? I used part of the chord. As I'm doing this, I'm getting more and more comfortable with switching in and out. It's the same scale, but switching in and out of both systems, the scale and the pentatonic scale. I'm getting comfortable with that. Now I'll do the same exact thing. So it's a D minor 7, Kevin, D minor 7 chord. I'll do the same thing with, it's a D minor 7, but I am tying to that the scale that works over all the chords, which is A minor pentatonic. So here comes the D minor 7, and you'll hear it. Right? And then the idea is to do the same thing with each of the chords. So if we look at the next chord we have, which would be an E minor 7, and again, that's why I'm keeping my chord positions in the same zone of the fretboard so that I can tie to them a single minor pentatonic scale. So what we'll do for the E minor 7 here, we're actually going to change this position that we had, which was on the starting on the 5th string. We had frets 7, 9, 7, 8, 7. This right here in that zone of the fretboard is a little bit outside of my minor pentatonic scale, which was here, right? Minor pentatonic scale, the first position is between frets 5 and 8. And that E minor 7 is a little bit outside of it. I'm going to bring this to that zone of the fretboard. And that's where the cage system is very useful, but this is not a lesson on the cage system. We're going to try to find an E minor 7 chord that is played in that zone of the fretboard. And we have one right here. Starting on the 5th string, we have frets 7, 5, 7, 8. These two chords are the same, right? Now this 7, 5, 7, 8 perfectly fits that zone of the fretboard, so I can easily tie in the notes of the chord with my minor pentatonic scale. And I'm going to do that over that E minor 7 chord. And in the same way for the 3rd chord, which is A minor 7, well, that's a perfect match. A minor 7 chord, 5, 7, 5, 5, 5, 5. We have these notes in the minor pentatonic scale. It's the same exact position. Okay, let's give that a try. And we're gonna try this over the backing track, and then I want you to pay attention. Try to recognize when I'm playing minor pentatonic and when I'm switching to highlighting the notes of the chords. For those of you who are familiar with caged, what I'm doing here for that D minor 7 chord, I'm using the A position. For the E minor 7, it's the C position, and for the A minor 7, it's the E position. But that doesn't really matter. The point is, I'm bringing these chords, these 3 chords, to the same zone of the fretboard to which I can tie my minor pentatonic scale. Let's try this over the backing track. And first thing, I'm not going to play. Because remember, the storyteller is the chord, so I'm going to let the chords establish what's going on, right? Okay. Use the D7. And A minor. The new chord that's introduced there. Does that make, do you hear it? If I stop the backing track, you should hear the chords. Should hear those chords. So that's where we're going with this. That's the idea for today, following those chords. But don't just follow the chords. Add to it a little bit of that pentatonic lick flair or whatever scale it is. You got to have a little bit of both. The way I like to see it is, imagine that you have 2 cups. One cup is for the automatic playing. So in that cup, you're going to put all the easy stuff for your brain. Maybe not your fingers, but all the easy stuff for your brain, stuff you can play without having to worry about it mentally. Might be a little challenge technically, but in that cup, you'll have something like this. My brain is like completely off. My fingers are doing all the work. Automatic. So that's in one cup. we'll call it the green cup. The blue cup is the opposite. In the blue cup, your fingers are no longer in control. You are in control of your fingers, which means that your concentration is going to be higher. Your brain is a lot more involved in the process. It's going to be very easy technically to do. So green cup, it's a little harder for the fingers, but your brain takes a rest. I mean, my fingers hurt a little bit, but my mind is shut off completely. Now my mind gets back in, my fingers are gonna take a break. It's gonna be easy because they can't keep up with my thought process, but my thought process is very engaged on the chords. I'm really anticipating the sound of every note, in control. I know exactly what chord I'm playing over. So, two cups are involved when I play. A lot of players just use the green cup. Find the pentatonic scale and just play all those licks and you're not engaged in the process. Now the trick is to actually use both cups when you improvise. If you only use the green cup, which is all the, the technical, which I can't do. I can't do it. I need to work more on my green cup. But if you just focus on that, then the listener is not really going to be interested. You might impress a few teenagers, but that's it. If you only use the blue cup, well, you're lacking maybe a little bit of excitement. So it's a combo of both. And what I feel that when you're playing with the green cup, all technical and stuff, you're kind of depleting your finger energy, or whatever it is. And once it's completely out, that's where the blue cup is full of that energy, and the blue cup takes over, giving your technical stuff a break because it's easier, but now your mind is more in control. And it's kind of a balancing act like that. And the idea is to not completely deplete the juice of the green cup or the juice of the blue cup. Hopefully that makes sense. But the blue cup is more focused on the chords and also maybe the emotions that you're putting into the notes, singing in your mind and replicating that. That's very demanding mentally and all that. So how do you work on this stuff? Well, I think the best way to work on this is use the backing track. Any backing track is great, but this one right here is there for you. But don't just work with the backing track, because if you do, you're going to start getting comfortable and you're going to start getting into habits that are difficult to forget. So what I would do is pick two chords, and those chords can either match a scale or not. As a matter of fact, if you do a random chords, that's even better. So let's take an F minor 7 chord. F minor, and then we'll take a G major. Your idea is to play something just using the notes of the chords without a backing track and try to bring the color of these chords without needing to hear the chords. You hear the chords there, right? You hear those chords, right? And then once you start getting too comfortable, pick new chords. And maybe I'll play this one. And that's kind of the way that you would work on that. I remember we had an assignment when I was in music school, and I'm going to give it to you. I think it's a great exercise. It's basically building a solo theme over a blues. But the trick is, don't have a backing track. So you want to use the chords of the blues, so, 1, 4, 5. So for blues in A, A7, D7, and E7. See if you can hear that. You hear it, right? You hear the chord change. That's the idea. So use that as an assignment. Take a chord progression you're very familiar with, the blues or whatever else, and try to come up with an idea, a melody, a solo, a theme that highlights those chords without needing to hear the chords in the back. So that's the idea. The backing track is really going to help you with that. It's all in A minor. And we're going to continue developing I'm going to share other ideas that you can use to kind of get unstuck with your solos, new areas of focus. And of course, when you're doing that, don't forget any of the stuff that you have already acquired and you're playing. That would be a shame. It's not a replacement of what you're doing. It's just adding a new idea to what you're already doing. Let's give that a try one more time over the backing track, and we'll see what happens. Think of those cups now. Try to think which cup I'm using. Instead of the blue cup, it's the mental cup. And I hear the concentration. For those of you who are watching the replay, you can watch the next workshop, and there's a link right here for you. So I'll meet you in the next workshop in which we're going to talk about new concepts. I'll meet you right there.